Hello everyone, this is Ron from High-Tech Legion. When AMD announced that they are releasing an AMD original APUs, I quickly went to the web to check out if motherboard manufacturers are announcing plans to release a mini-ITX motherboard to go with this release. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Even now, I gotta Google, as I went to not just Google but Newegg as well, check out mini-ITX FM2 motherboards. The pickings are slim, and to me that doesn't make sense because FM2, the APUs for the FM2 socket are very efficient, and they relatively good power consumption relative to the performance of the graphics. And of course, the power consumption, low power consumption means low heat, and it just makes sense because that's pretty much what mini-ITX mainboards are for. They were originally designed to be low power, low heat, and now we have very efficient APUs to go with it. So why not create one? And that's exactly what Gigabyte has done. They've announced a F2A85XN-WiFi mainboard to go with these latest AMD original APUs. And of course, let's just dig in and see what we can find inside this package. The F2A85XN-WiFi obviously comes in a small box. In the rear you get more promotional information, but let's just dig in. See, you can find inside, of course, you have a user's manual, a quite comprehensive user's manual, and you have your mainboard itself inside an anti-static packaging. Underneath you have a compartment that contains the accessories, including the driver CD. You have a latching SATA cable, a pair of them. One is angled and one is straight, and they're both black, as well as a IO shield, has labels color coded and has padding in the rear. For the antenna, you get this unique looking design that can be angled, and also has a SMA connector next to the rear of your motherboard. It is magnetic as well. The Gigabyte F2A85X mini-ITX mainboard clearly is much smaller because of the mini-ITX form factor compared to typical mainboards. And we can see that the layout is also not something most people are familiar with. There actually is no set standard with the type of layout for mini-ITX mainboards, and most manufacturers decide how it's going to be oriented. For example, this one, some mainboard can have the CPU oriented sideways and reposition certain aspects of where the memory DIMM slots are. But for this one, for example, it pretty much stays with the layout of a standard ETX size motherboard, except for the SATA connectors right on top. You have the DIMM slots right on the side. These are 2 slots because of the minimal real estate available. You also have a PCIe X16 slot. This is PCIe Express 2.0. There is no PCIe Express 3.0 supported in any AMD platforms yet. And also, the CPU socket here supports the latest AMD Richland GPUs, APUs, such as the A106800K, which I will be using to benchmark this mainboard. And that's just some closer look here at the layout. There will, of course, understandably, clearance issues that will be encountered, specifically if you use a video card that has a backplate that's slightly thicker, because you can see that the 8-pin power connector sits a little too close to that area. That's just a minor concern, so just be aware of that. Also, the fact that you can't install larger heatsink in this socket being that close to the PCIe X16 graphics card. So I would suggest picking your coolers wisely, which is always understandable for people who are looking to build a mini-ITX form factor. They have to compromise with the type of cooling they can use because of the fact that it will be in a much more cramped and smaller space. Now, as for the chips right here at the bottom, you can see that it has a Realtek ALC892 audio codec, also the front panel audio connector right here, right on almost on top. That's separated by a capacitor and an SPDIF out. It's of course outputs to the rear. The audio connectors there, including an optical out. And also, while I'm in the middle of talking about the capacitors, these are actually not just any solid state capacitors. These are 5K capacitors. There's a label there. That means it is rated for 5K. That's 5,000 hours at 105 degrees Celsius temperature, which is, of course, pretty much impossible to be loaded that way on a typical system, no matter how cramped it is. So that means it is a long lifetime solid state capacitor compared to the 2K or 2,000 hour rating that is mostly used for more mainstream mainboards. And that is, of course, the component selection is part of what Gigabyte calls the Ultra Durable 4 design. There's actually Ultra Durable 4 Plus, and it also involves international rectifier controllers here, the voltage, and since it is the IR3567B, and it is, of course, a 6+2 phase controller. Underneath that, you'll find IR3550s, which Gigabyte actually uses for their high-end systems, and they've been using it for a lot of their systems as well. That now a lot of other mainboard manufacturers have implemented in their design as well, because it's very effective. And also, right tucked behind that is a Realtek network controller, and there, of course, outputs here. It's a Gigabit LAN, and there is 2 USB ports right underneath that. And as for USB 2.0, another 2 here at the top, which are, of course, natively provided by the chipset. And the same with the USB 3.0 output headers here. You have 2 of them, and 2 more provided by the onboard 19-pin header, and natively by the Hudson D4 chipset directly underneath this heatsink. And the Hudson D4, I believe, can output also 4 SATA connectors, again from the Hudson D4 chipset underneath there. The maximum, I think, the Hudson D4 supports up to 4 SATA outputs. They only put up to 8 SATA connectors rather. They support, but the Gigabyte only opted to put 4 in there because of the limited space. That, of course, is not really a deal breaker. 4 is plenty fine. And the difference between this one having a Hudson D4 chipset that has 4 and Hudson, since we can't use all 8 SATA 6 ports anyway, and the Hudson D3 is the fact that it adds RAID 5 capability. If there are mini-ITX mainboards out there that use A75 chipset, they won't have RAID 5 functionality. And as for the other connectors here, let's proceed. You have let's see where that clear CMOS sign there for the jumper. So the clear CMOS jumper is somewhere here at the end, but there is a guide there telling you which setting is for clearing and the normal. And also you have a 4-pin CPU fan header here for the CPU, and 4-pin fan header right there, the back, for a second fan. So like all other N-series mainboards from Gigabyte, I like the fact that they put in 4-pin PWM fan headers. And as for the wireless LAN, let's see if my camera can keep focused on that. This is actually a Athros Wi-Fi module, AR5B22. Also supports Bluetooth, and of course 300 megabit trans rate, wireless N. And but underneath that, see if you can see that has basically, let me just move that wire there. Basically, you see the 2 BIOS chips there for the redundancy, just in case one fails. And for the front panel connector, color coding there. But since most people don't really check the manual, there is a handy little guide right there. It tells you the polarity and which one plugs into which. It's easy to see too because it's not obstructed in that area. And right beside that is a USB 2.0 header, providing 2 more additional ones from the 2 at the back. Now, as for the rest of the options here, you have an IT8728F chip right there, a big one. That's, of course, for monitoring temperatures, and I believe it also provides the PS2 combo port in the rear. And the output displays, you have, of course, the dual link DVI, and these are a pair of HDMI ports. Of course, HDMI, very useful for if you're building a multimedia center or HTPC. and see the rear they are shielded. And I skipped this part, but the antenna from the connects to the Wi-Fi module extends here, and these are actually SMA connectors, as you saw in accessory pack. And these are of course much more secure since you screw it on, and a lot better than at least in my opinion preferred compared to the push-on secure type. And here in the rear it's pretty much quite plain. You can see that the heatsinks are screwed in place, and of course has a very good voltage regulation design here, so that means it should be able to overclock very well as well. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to throw it into my, well, not throw it, not literally at least. I'm going to put in an A10 6800K here, and let's see how well it performs.
Gigabyte clearly got a lot of things right when they designed the F2A85XN-WiFi mainboard. In particular, the fact that you can now control voltage, and this allows you not just to overclock further, but also to undervolt, which a lot of DIY HTPC builders do, just to lower the power consumption. And also the fact that the overclock is very good. I limited it to 4.7 gigahertz because it doesn't make sense to add more voltage in there. Add more voltage, add more heat in a small form factor system. It will be irresponsible for me as a reviewer to kind of set unrealistic expectations. That's why I always mention it in my review if I use a retail or an ES chip. So you know, you don't have, your expectations are managed. With this one, of course, you can overclock further. You can definitely because my voltage was not too much. But it will be, you have to be comfortable with the fact that you have to slap in a large cooler in there. It won't be a silent HTPC small form factor build anymore, because you have to have that large heatsink in there to overclock it further. And as for the performance, obviously the Wi-Fi performance, I love it. The fact that the antenna, I didn't know what to make of it first. It was definitely unique. But after using it, I found the genius in the design. It is magnetic on one side, and you can angle it. So that means it's not just sitting on your table. You can also slap it on the side of a case because it's magnetic. You can just flip it to the side, and it will still be pointing upward. And you can also angle it. You can tilt it forward, rather when you slap it to the side of the case, so that you can get the best signal. And it uses the SMA connector, which is pretty much my preferred connector style instead of the push-on ones, which are, you know, those are annoying to pull out. The SMA connectors are a lot more secure. They're bigger. You don't have to fumble with it. Just easily screw it in. And also they're they just really work well, a lot better than the snap-on ones. And also dual-link DVI, very good decision by Gigabyte, and the dual HDMI ports as well. So it's there's no VGA ports here for display. These are high definition displays with high bandwidth, especially dual HDMI. So you can just essentially build a very good HTPC or media server, or home media server, with also the optical SPDIF out for the audio as well, a separate channel. So that's good. And as for the layout, there were some, of course, it used the Hudson D4 chipset, but it only has 4 SATA ports, which is not really a deal breaker, because the Hudson D4 can do 4 SATA ports. I can do 8 SATA ports in total, but there really isn't any real estate on a mini-ITX mainboard anyway, so doesn't really make sense to add more. 4 is enough for me, and you can also compared to the A75 chipset, you can do RAID 5, which is an additional bonus feature. And also there's a 19-pin USB 3.0 onboard header, in addition to a pair of USB 3.0 in the rear for USB 3.0 connectivity. So I really can't complain. Other than that, there were things I did not like. The fact that the power connector sits too close to the PCIe for my liking. If you have PCIe graphics card that has a backplate, or it sort of had that back brace, that will encroach in that area into that power connector area, because it adds like a few millimeters more in the back of the card. So I would have preferred it was positioned a little bit higher, or something a little bit further away from that area. But other than that, obviously you have to have concessions, some decisions made when designing a mini-ITX mainboard compromised because of the limited real estate. But I think Gigabyte did well in this case, and just the fact that it overclocks very well, and it has very high quality components, which really shows the build quality just for the moment you open it. And that's pretty much it for this review. You can click on the link below for more information and read my full review. And you'll also see the rest of the review, and also subscribe for daily updates. You can visit us at facebook.com/HDLReviews. Tweet at us at twitter.com/HightechLegion. Visit us at hightechlegion.com/forum. And once again, this is Ron signing out. Thanks for watching.